and it's not going down very well. 600,000 people, well, more than, it'll be about 640,000 by now, have signed this petition wanting this to be stopped in its tracks. But we are going to get that speech from the Prime Minister later on today. Christopher Hope, our political editor, is sort of standing by, ready for that. I mean, he seems determined to plough on, Chris, but as we're saying, it's not proving popular.
No, it's not. And I think the question about ID cards is, should we all be mandated to have some form of digital ID because this government can't control the southern border, as Mark White repeatedly reminds the government with his reporting from down the south coast. There's a problem here. They're not stopping the small boats crossing. These people then disappear into the black economy. Yes, Emmanuel Macron is right. That is a pull factor. But is it right that pensioners who may want to work have to try and find to carry digital ID? All sorts of questions here. There's, for example, 2.4 million pensioners who aren't on the internet. Will they be required to carry some form of paper, some form of ID card? You know, papers, please, granny. Is that what's going to happen next? I think it's a long debate here, and the scale of those numbers signing up for that petition, which is barely a day or two old, I think is extraordinary. It does show that there's a big debate to be won here by the government, but the polls show that more than half of people do support ID cards. But the concern is what happens to their data? Is there a data breach? What happens then? The politics of it is interesting. I think Kemi Badenoch last night said there's good and bad points about it. I thought she was very equivocational last night, whereas Nigel Farage was vehemently against immediately. On our shows last night on State of the Nation, we heard Andrew Griffiths. He's against it. This morning, Helen Whately, she's against it. Will we hear a more stronger language from Kemi Badenoch later? Other parties, Lib Dems are against it. There's concerns in Northern Ireland. There's a Sinn Féin First Minister there saying why should people there who don't really support being part of the UK carry something called a Brit card? Is that right? There's loads of questions to be answered, but the language from the PM today, we'll be hearing him saying that Labour did shy away, he'll say, from people's concerns about illegal migration. The belief that uncontrolled illegal migration, he'll say, was nothing but good news, as frankly the left have thought for a while, for it should never be accepted by the left. He's coming round really to where a lot of people are concerned about these numbers coming through the door, legal and illegal, and it's a big change of tone here from Sir Keir Starmer.
But he obviously wouldn't be announcing it unless he thought it was really good news that we would welcome, as a way of stopping the boats, as it were, smashing the gangs, or at least getting illegal migration down in numbers, making the country less attractive. But it doesn't seem to be going down that way. And it's not going to stop the boats, is it?
Well, and it may stop people arriving here then disappearing into what they call the shadow or the black economy. So it may help do that. I mean, I think there's different approaches to the boats. Some would say leaving the European Convention on Human Rights is a sledgehammer to crack a nut. It's a big dramatic moment to deal with a difficult issue, but a small issue compared to the scale of the ECHR. So there are different kind of blunderbusses being used by different parties to tackle the issue of illegal migration. Reforms say ECHR withdrawal. The Tories might say that at their conference next month. It seems Labour's answer is ID cards for all of us, and that also is deeply controversial. And I think already it's opening up a dividing line in politics with people like Nigel Farage and others against it, and of course Keir Starmer in favour of it. But later on we'll hear from the PM in that speech. He'll try and re-adopt the word patriotism from a left point of view, saying that he'll raise concerns about that march led by Tommy Robinson a few weeks ago. He's concerned about that. I think it's been a real moment here for this government to try to take on the issue of the concern about immigration and small boats crisis. OK, Chris, thanks very much indeed. Let's talk to the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, who joins us now. It's great to have you on the programme. Thanks for your time. Can we clear up a couple of bits about this? Because there's been conflicting reports this morning. Is this going to be a mandatory scheme for all British adults?
Yes, all British adults will have a digital ID by the end of this Parliament, but it's not like an ID card scheme where you would be required to carry that around and show it to access services. The only thing that we will require people to produce a digital ID for is to work in this country, which we think will have a significant impact in helping us, alongside other measures, to tackle illegal migration.
But it changes the default position of the average citizen, doesn't it? It's almost as though we are having to prove that we are legal in order to prevent the illegals getting work. It doesn't seem very British having to do that.
I don't think it does change the default in that it ensures that people who have the right to work can work, and it protects British people from being undercut by a legal market in employment, which, you know, when you've got 1 million young people who are not in education, employment or training, is obviously having a significant impact on families up and down the country. We're not suggesting for a moment that people will have to continuously carry this card, that this digital ID, that they'll have to produce it to access all sorts of services. But at the moment, we do have to produce ID for lots of things. If you have spot checks, for example, in workplaces or factories, you can be required to produce ID to prove that you can work. We've all got access now to things like the NHS app, which has had significant benefits for a lot of UK citizens. So we think there's a really positive element of this to a lot of people across the United Kingdom, but it also will help us to deal with something that's of significant concern to a lot of people, including many of your viewers, and that's illegal migration.
Yeah, but every employer will know, and as every landlord knows, that, you know, if you take on a new tenant, you have to do a right to rent check. If you take on a new employee, you have to do a right to work check. So that's already available. So, I mean, part of the question is to say, well, why bother changing the dynamics of that? But also, if you are currently not bothered about doing a right to work check and employing someone illegally, that's not going to change with an ID card, is it?
Well, no, it's not. Although if you're not bothered about employing somebody illegally, then you can face unlimited fines and a jail sentence for doing so, and that won't change. But what will change is that we've heard from employers that it is often quite onerous to be able to do those checks. For example, you can require someone to give you the national insurance number, but the national insurance number is not linked to any kind of photo ID or other forms of ID. And so it's very difficult for employers to be absolutely certain that the person that they're employing is the person whose national insurance number has been presented. We think this makes it much simpler for employers. We think it's more robust, and we think it helps us as part of a whole suite of measures to tackle the illegal migration that we've seen in record numbers under the last government.
I mean, sorry, I was just going to say, because you said this is only about getting jobs, which is, you know, if it's limited to that, well, maybe that'll alleviate some fears. But even Tony Blair has said, oh, this is very good. It could lead to a gateway to government services. So he's already looking at expanding it.
Well, it could lead to a gateway to government services for people who choose to use it in that way. So just like with the NHS app, which I'm on, many people are on, where you can access your own medical records, can make GP appointments online and order repeat medication. Just as that has been game-changing for people who choose to use it, so could a digital ID for people who want to use it for those services. But we're being clear as a government today, and the Prime Minister will outline this in a speech later today. We're not requiring people to use it for those purposes, but if they want to, and we suspect many people will, it'll make their interface and interaction with the state much easier and much more seamless.
But frankly, in this country, any government's reputation for cyber security, as it were, has never been good. There are all sorts of breaches of data security. We've seen some recently as well that have stopped the NHS stone dead, or airports shut them down. We don't really trust a government's ability to keep our data secret and safe. So why should we trust you now?
Well, we've been looking at the experience of other countries like Estonia, where they've been pioneers in digital ID, and the measures that they've put in place to protect people's data, including really robust encryption services, so that if you have a digital ID, when you use it, only parts of that ID, the parts that need to be shared, will be shared. But cybersecurity is a growing problem, as you rightly highlight. The issues at Jaguar Land Rover are only the latest in a whole series of incidents that have affected M&S, the British Library and others. we're taking that seriously. We're bringing forward new laws, more robust laws to protect our cybersecurity. Every country in the world is dealing with that, but these two things can be done concurrently. And there are problems with offline ID. We've seen a rise in identity theft, people losing documents and then finding that somebody has stolen their identity and is using it for fraudulent purposes. If we get this right, and we're determined to do so, having learnt from the experience of other countries who've done it before us, it should be more secure and help to keep people's data more secure than the current system of having to carry around a lot of documents and constantly demonstrate that through different means.
OK. Lisa and Andy, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.